This conference will
Oh,
now
that's
be
Clint.
recorded.
Didn't even recognize him.
Yeah. I saw him in person. It's 9 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting to order. This is the Committee of Adjustment, and although the committee is made up of council members, we don't sit as council. We sit as members of the committee only, and we can go from there. Can I get a motion to mover and seconder to confirm the agenda, please? Barbara and Martin? Is there any discussion on it? Okay, is anyone opposed to this? That part is carried. If there's any declaration of pecuniary interest, you can declare now or at any time and submit the proper paperwork. And then I need a mover and seconder to accept the minutes from August 24th meeting. Brian and Michael, discussion on that. Seeing none, is anyone opposed to that motion? And that is carried. So today's agenda's got a couple of different little things on it than our usual ones. So Lindsay, welcome. And I know you usually sit in, but you actually have report on this one. So I'll need a mover and seconder to put this on the floor. And it's the Ian and Priscilla Martin, the condition extension. So do I have a mover, Barbara, and seconder? Martin? Okay. Hi, Lindsay. Would you like to tell us a story?
Not really. I'll pull a Clint and say it's in the report. No, it's pretty straightforward. Just the development agreement hasn't been entered into yet. So they're looking, our staff are looking to extend it until March 31st of next year. And that should be more than enough time to get the development agreement passed. And then the conditions will be met and get it registered and settled.
Okay. Thank you. Questions and comments? Martin, and then Brian.
Thank you, John. Good morning, Lindsay. It is pretty basic, straightforward. It's being moved ahead because of the Conservation Authority needs EIS and other flood recommendations. It says it probably would be done by the end of the year. Do you think that would be the case, or do you think it'd go with the 6 months to March? Like, I'm not opposed to the 6 months, obviously, but better for them.
Yeah. Through you, Chair Woodbury. We were thinking end of the year, but just with timelines and stuff, we will have a bunch of stuff at the end of the year. We just wanted to give that buffer of March 31st. But fine. I can see Clint may have more to add, but I can see it coming way sooner than March 31st for sure.
Okay.
Okay.
We just would hate for it not to come by the end of the year and then have to do this again.
Do it all over again. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Brian.
Thank you, John. Question to Clint, I guess, is what seems to be the holdup? Are they having difficulty getting a consultant to do the EIS, or what's standing in their way?
It's just the actual getting the development agreement ready and with the conditions and all of that sort of stuff. It just, they haven't really been pushing it that much, and it just hasn't been brought forward yet. So I don't know what else to say other than it's just on the list of things to do, and it hasn't been done yet. So rather than have them have their consent lapse or what have you, it's better to just give a little extra time and get it done. Otherwise, we'll be here again next year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, I'll call the question. Is anyone opposed to this? And that is carried. So thanks for that. And now, Clint, you have a cancellation certificate, and I need a mover and seconder to put this one on the floor. Brian and Barbara. Clint, your turn to talk.
Thank you, Chair Woodbury. This one's fairly straightforward. We've had a couple of these in the past recently. This is sort of the new approach when merging lots now. You cancel the old consent, and these people are trying to put up, I believe it's a barn on a property line, and the building department is reluctant to do that, obviously, because it's can't be done. So we're going to get rid of that lot line by merging the lots, and then they should be able to get their permit.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on this one? Okay, then I'll call the question. Is anyone opposed to this motion? And that one is carried. So that worked out good. Next, we'll move on to 7.1, and this is 2391827 Ontario Inc. And purpose of the application, let me just go over to this. This is subject land is plan 480 block T, lot 21, geographic village of Dundalk. The lands are further described as 141 Hagan Street West. Purpose of this application is to create 2 lots to allow for the sale of semi-detached units. The application will create a severed and retained lot. The severed and retained lots will each have 15 meters of frontage and a minimum lot area of 340 meters squared. The effect is to create 2 small parcels of land, one with frontage of 15 meters on Gold Street, the other with 15 meters of frontage on Hagan Street. Both lots will have a minimum lot area of 340 meters squared to allow for the sale of semi-detached units. Okay, can I have confirmation that proper notice was given, please?
Thank you, Chair Woodbury. I can confirm proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act.
Okay, thank you. And Clint, we'll turn it over to you for comments received from agencies and the public.
Okay. So the first comments I have. Okay. The comments I have first are from the Public Works Department, which indicates it's an urban asphalt standard road. Residential entrance permits will be required for the lot once it's created, and water and sewer services will have to be installed at the developer's cost to meet the needs for the lot. The Risk Management Office indicates a wellhead protection area B is in this area for the lot, which is the wellhead protection area B, which is applicable to dense non-aqueous phase liquids. And products are managed by education and outreach. The frontage portion of the lot is WEPA B, and the rear of the lot is WEPA C, which is a lower classification. Moving on, Hydro 1 has no comments or concerns at this time. The Grand River Conservation Authority has no objection or comments. And the County of Grey Planning Department indicate that the proposed severance will occur in a primary settlement area with full municipal servicing. Further, the applicant is proposing to create semi-detached dwellings on both the severed and the retained parcel. County planning staff have no concerns with the application. And that is all of the agency comments that I received. I will note, I did receive a phone call from a neighbor regarding this. They were not so much concerned with the application as more the process of it, being that they thought it was a little late in the day to do to have the consent now when the zoning was done previously. And I explained to them that because we're doing a back-to-back semi here, that they build the foundation first, and then they survey that so that they get the back wall of the foundation in the middle of the lot, so that the survey is then correct, and then they do the severance at that point. So the zoning was done previously for that reason, to allow it to be constructed, and then they do the consent afterwards. And that's all of the comments I have to date.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, that's been standard practice right along for us with semis. So thanks for explaining that. If the agent or applicant is present and wish to make a presentation, please identify yourself, and we can hear from you now. Okay. Let's get your report then, Clint. Anything you'd like to say about this?
Not much more than what's in the report there. It's like I said, it's already been zoned. It can have these semi-detached structure there now. The only difference is now we're splitting it to allow for, instead of rental units, them to actually be sold off as individual units. That's the only difference here. It's an ownership change, really.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the committee? Brian.
It's not so much a question. I was just going to say it's almost the process. It's almost like the old way of getting building permits years ago. You put the barn up first, and then you got the building permit, so that it was very accurate that way. So it kind of works that way. It doesn't work that way now. I hasten to add, but it used to be that way. Thank you.
Yep. Martin, and then Barbara. Hey, you didn't speak while you were on mute at the live meeting.
I know. I was tempted.
Yeah.
With the 4 new buildings going up, is the Public Works has no problem with 4 more driveways on those streets? Like, obviously not, but do you think that'd be a problem down the road?
Public Works hasn't indicated that. This is only for the one lot right now. So there's only one building being proposed at this time, so there's one severance there that's going to happen. So, but I'm sure they would let me know in their comments if they did have a concern.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Barbara.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Woodbury, to Clinton. It being on such a narrow lot, the back-to-back semis, which is great because it provides smaller options and more diverse mix of housing. Will they be restricted in any way to adding basement apartments, secondary suites? Because that would certainly create more parking constraints. And Hagan Street is already a congested area with the school there.
They still have to meet the parking requirements for accessory units, which is, so the existing semi-detached structure has to have 2 parking spaces. For an accessory apartment, it would then have to have another one. So there would have to be 3 parking spaces plus area for snow storage. So
right.
If that's not, they're not able to do that, then the answer is no, they wouldn't get an accessory apartment.
Thank you.
Okay, anything further from the committee? Okay, not seeing anything, I'll go on to any questions from the public, and if there are, please identify yourself, and then after we hear from Lindsay, we'll get to that. Go ahead, Lindsay.
I just wondered, Clint, I noticed you didn't have any conditions in your report. Is that correct? I just find that odd.
Yeah. Yes, I was actually talking with Holly about that this morning. There are 3 conditions that, and they're standard conditions. One is that the survey is provided. The other one, that the remainder of the fees and charges are paid once the approval has happened. And then the third one is, what did I say it was? That it's connected to municipal services at the owner's expense, which that is the standard for that area. So, and those are all things that the owner is aware of. So.
Okay, I just want to make sure then when the staff report's moved.
Yes, I apologize. I was writing this while I was at the OPPI conference in London, so I might have been a little bleary-eyed.
Okay. Yeah, okay, that's good. So if there's any members from the public that would like to speak, again, for or against this, you can identify yourself and then go ahead. Not hearing any. If there's any other questions or comments from the committee. Barbara.
More point of order, Chair. Do we need to amend the staff report, or will this be sufficient to be in the notice or the certificate that we have to sign?
I believe it's whatever motion we pass would be sufficient, and staff can add this after, but I'll get clarification on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's correct. As long as it's moved and seconded with those 3 conditions, then that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Michael.
I'm just kind of wondering, we've had a lot of development on Hagen Street, and at what point do we get the, the hard services repaired and fixed, sidewalks? I'm just kind of wondering how that money gets allocated to that. Like, it was in the new subdivision, all that infrastructure would have been done, and then we would have taken ownership. But at this point, we've built quite a few houses going down that street. I'm just kind of wondering, at what point do we reconstruct Hagen Street, because it is so close to the school, and we do have, a lot of issues there.
I think that's more a council question than a committee question. I'll see if staff can answer it, but I'm not sure if that's this place. So go ahead, Clint.
I would likely defer that to our public works in terms of when they feel that's necessary to bring that forward in their capital budget for bringing and repairing roads and sidewalks and that sort of thing. So that's a good question. I just think maybe that's one for the public works and possibly during budgeting time.
Okay, thank you. Barbara.
For you to, just in follow-up to Member Shearson's comment, though, if it's the same, and I don't know if it's the same developer that has created part of the roadway or sidewalk curb damage, would they not be obligated to return it to its original state as part of the conditions?
That I'm not aware of. Again, that's a question for Public Works.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion to either approve, refuse, or defer this, and with the 3 conditions of the survey, the fees paid, and connected to municipal supplies at the owner's expense. Barbara, go ahead.
I move we grant.
Okay. Do we have a seconder? Martin? All right. Any further discussion? Okay. Is anyone opposed to this? Not seeing any. That is carried. So thank you. Next is 7.2. That's file B4-21. This is Roger and Linda Falldown. Concession 1, Part Lot Division 2 and to 3, Lot 21, Geographic Township of Egremont. The purpose is to sever a 0.929 hectare of land with 60 meters of frontage on Highway 6 from the existing 33.5 hectare lot. The retained parcel will be 32.52 hectares, having a 321.5 meters of frontage on Southgate Road 10. The effect would be create a new residential lot. The retained lot would remain as primary wetland, but have a building envelope for a residence identified. Can I have confirmation, please, that proper notice was given?
Thank you, Chair Woodbury. I can confirm that proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act.
Okay, thank you. Clint, any comments received?
Thank you, Chair Woodbury. There are a few comments. I'd also like to point out that the agent and applicant are on the line with us today and will likely be wishing to speak at some point after I provide the notice or the comments, etc. Okay, so the first comments I have are from the County of Grey. And the County of Grey indicates, where are they here? It's rather lengthy here. The county planning staff are recommending deferral of the subject application in order for the applicant to relocate the proposed driveway outside of the provincially significant wetlands. And the county is requesting notice of any decision. These comments came in a little bit late. And when I talked to them, they actually were recommending deferral, refusal originally. So these are a little softer than what they had originally said to me when I spoke to them. Moving on, we have the Conservation Authority. And the Conservation Authority has, the application is generally acceptable to the SVCA staff. The Public Works Department indicate that it's MTO jurisdiction for Highway 6, and Southgate Road 10 is a no winter maintenance road from Highway 10 to Side Road 33. A road widening is required. Entrance requirements, MTO jurisdiction. Highway 6 has no load restrictions, while Highway 10 is load restricted, or sorry, Southgate Road 10 is load restricted. A clearing noted on Southgate Road 10 corner would require an entrance permit within the MTO intersection approval. Therefore, it would require a permit from MTO as well. An entrance of Southgate Road 10 would require winter maintenance. Road upgrades would have to be considered. Not knowing where entrance would be located for that retained parcel. Hydro 1 have no comments or concerns, and Bell Canada indicates basically that they have no concerns at this time. And that is all of the agency comments received.
Okay, thank you. Anything from the public?
There are none received from members of the public.
Okay, thank you, Clint. Next, I'll ask if the applicant or agent, and present, identify yourself and give any presentation that you have at the moment.
Yes, Chair Woodbury, Don Scott, Questa Planning Consultants. We prepared the planning report that Mr. Stredwick had requested from Barb Crummer. One of the things that we immediately were concerned about was the fact that you do have a provincially significant wetland taking up most of the original township lot. Now, so that we were aware that I think 2007 there had been an EIS prepared for building location and access and a servicing area for this corner of the lot. And Mr. Stredwick suggested and required that that EIS be updated, which was a logical request because of the age of the initial EIS. And that was done, and the recommendations supported the development of a house and a servicing area and an access out onto the township road. One of the things that one must remember is that provincial mapping and county mapping is done on an air photo basis. And when we're coming to, or when we're dealing with applications that are adjacent to or within some 120, 150 meters of a provincially significant wetland, we insist that the biologist be hired in order to accurately define the boundary of that PSW on the ground, not from air photos. And that has been done twice. And based on that accurate definition of where the PSW is, this particular project is supportable. The access is not in the PSW, it's in a buffer area. And when any type of development occurs in a buffer area, the provincial policy statement requires that you have to provide an environmental impact study to demonstrate that the ecological function of that PSW is not interfered with. That was done. And the Conservation Authority, which is the, I'm not going to say the approval authority, but they certainly are the ones that are involved actively in provincially significant wetlands and development in or around them, has supported the application. So from that particular perspective, I'm not too sure why the county is objecting to the application, because it is, the access is not in PSW, it's in a buffer area. The study has been done and it's been endorsed by the Conservation Authority. And the Conservation Authority has prescribed a number of mitigation measures for the development, and they're also will require a permit for this application. And at that point in time, they're going to be enforcing those particular measures that they've laid out and have been identified in the EIS as well as in our planning report. So I'm not too sure the purpose of deferring the application. The EIS is very clear about the fact that it's an appropriate location for the building and the servicing area and the access. So you can defer it, but we're basically going to come back with the same recommendation that if you read the EIS that's been approved by the Conservation Authority, that it's a logical location for the entrance as well as the building area. So I'll be prepared to answer any questions. I'm not a biologist, but I have read their report, and that's what the major background information on which we based our recommendation. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Just let me get back here to this. Let's go to Clint. Let's go to your report, and then we can get the committee to ask questions on both.
My report's fairly simple. Basically, just recommending it be deferred until we can address the two. There's two comments that are outstanding there. One, Mr. Scott's already been addressing, which is the comments from the County of Grey. And as I said, when I was writing my report, I didn't have the benefit of the county written comments. I was speaking to them over the phone, and at that time they were actually recommending refusal of the application. And so I said, okay, well, let's at least defer it, and so we could talk about this a little bit more, was my original thinking on this. The second comment, though, that I think is actually in the township's interest a bit more important is the Public Works comments, and that's that it's not an opened and maintained road year round. It's a seasonal road. And so the access is going to be from that. And therefore, getting a building permit on that retained parcel is going to be difficult, if not impossible. Because you, as a requirement for building on that retained parcel, you have to have opened and maintained road frontage year round. So I'm not sure how we get around that. One of the suggestions in the Public Works comments is that there be road upgrades done, which quite frankly could be costly. And I don't know if the applicants are aware of that. And so I think before we go and put a bunch of conditions on here that are unrealistic to even meet, let's sit and have a talk with the applicant, go to the site. We can show the county where that, in fact, the EIS is more accurate and correct than their mapping, because their biggest concern was, well, on the page, the wetland mapping, which is done by the province, says that the access is going right through that. But as Mr. Scott explained, they've been out there and ground truth that, and that's not the case for the severed or the retained parcel. So we can, in my opinion, we can likely address one of those issues fairly quickly, being the wetland issue. However, the road issue is a bit bigger issue in the sense that it could be more costly, and if we ignore it, you're creating a parcel that's not developable, and that's something we don't really want to do, because we end up owning it at the end of the day when no one can get a building permit for it, because they don't want to pay taxes on something they can't build on. So that's the biggest concern. So I would like to have the time to sit and talk with the applicant to see if there is, and Public Works for that matter, to see if there's a way we can resolve that, whether it's some road upgrades and maybe a limited service agreement or something like that for that stretch of the road, maybe providing a turnaround for vehicles. I don't know what the answer is, which is why I think we need the time to explore that, which is why I'm recommending it be deferred until we can do that.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go to the committee for questions. Barbara?
Thank you. In some areas where houses or farmhouses had been built on side roads, the landowner is responsible for clearing the laneway or the roadway to the laneway. So we have farms, we have industrial shops whereby it's not a year-round road, and they have a development agreement to that certain point. Is that something that could be explored, that if they had, development has to pay for development, if they upgraded a 300-meter stretch of the road, I'm not even sure, I'm just throwing out that number, to provide them access, but that they would have to keep the roadway cleared as opposed to us having to keep a portion of an unopened road allowance cleared. I'm sure that's something that you're going to explore with Public Works. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. And with the applicant, if I don't know if they're willing to do that or not.
Right,
So,
right, of course,
we need to have that discussion first.
because it would have to be upgraded to our standards as well. And they have to provide emergency egress and access if emergency services were called. Why, I'm just wondering, maybe I've missed it, but they're severing, they've already cleared a building lot on the corner there, and they're severing that building lot from the provincially significant wetland, which wouldn't be developable.
So there's actually a piece on the east side of that wetland area that is actually developable. There is a pocket on the east side of that parcel. It's almost right to the other side of the parcel. That would be the retained lands that would have a developable envelope potentially. The EIS has identified it as being buildable and not wetland, so that's positive. Now,
but it's still an unopened road allowance.
That's the part we're trying to address here.
For both of those, like for the whole stretch of that property.
Yes.
Thank you. I did want to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, not seeing.
John.
Go ahead, Martin. And Brian?
I can certainly agree that the county and the Conservation Authority and Coester's biologist who did the actual walk around, that's not the problem, as Clinton said. It is this township piece of road. Have the applicants thought, or would it be possible, since prohibitive costs to do work on the township road, what would it entail? Have they already looked at doing an MTO permit? Because would that not be cheaper in the long run for them as far as upgrading our road? Looking at the map attachment 7 on the 7.25, there's no other buildings around there on that road. So is that something they've looked at?
I'm going to refer that to Don Scott there.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Clint. To be quite honest, we were not aware that there was going to be a road issue when we prepared our planning report, or we would have tried to deal with that much earlier than at the 11th hour. As far as MTO access is concerned, I think you're all aware that MTO sits on the right hand of God, and to get them to do anything is just quite difficult. They're very particular about access, and they would force anybody to use a local road wherever possible.
Oh, okay.
So I think Clint's got the right idea. I don't mind it being deferred for access purposes. The comments on the PSW are I don't think they're accurate, but from the county perspective. But I think we could sit down and discuss some options for access on the county road or elsewhere. So I'm prepared to support Clint's recommendation on deferral for the access to be dealt with.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
And yeah, I think we've seen the swiftness that MTO works at. Yeah, I was at another meeting the other day where something had been before a provincial body for 2 years, and everyone was complaining that was slow, and I was telling them how quick that was compared to MTO. Brian.
Thank you, John. Just a comment, I suppose. anybody that's driven through that road in the height of a dry season, notwithstanding Mr. Scott's extensive and knowledgeable report, and from the EIS report, I would suggest that it's less than a desirable building location, and that road is gonna, it's really just a dirt track through the bush, through the swamp. I just think it's a bit of a Hail Mary reach to suggest you want to build something in there, but I guess that's up to the landowner to pursue. But I very much have concerns about the access. Absolutely, it's going to cost a fortune to get an access in there. But again, that's up to the landowner. Thank you, and I'm going to support deferral for sure.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then I'll call for any questions from the public, although I don't see any public on here right now. And then we can go back to further questions from the committee. And okay, Michael.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to we defer this until more investigation to make sure that that all parties are aware of what the actual cost is going to be before we refuse it at this point.
Mm-hmm. Okay, do I have a seconder for a deferral? Jim? Okay, any further discussion on that? Okay, is anyone, oh, Jim, go ahead. No, you're muted.
Further to what Brian had said about that little stretch of road, in the spring it is prone to flooding. So any road building would have to be not only just widen the road, but to elevate it too. It does get kind of swampy.
Yeah. Yep. And that's all the stuff that they can work on together to see what options are, or if there are any workable options. So yeah, thanks, Jim. Any further? Okay, then I'll call for a motion for deferral here. Is anyone opposed to the motion? And that is carried. So thank you, Don, for your report, and look forward to hearing a creative solution for this and see if we can get some entrance there.
Always good to see you, Mr. Scott.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Always a pleasure, Mr. Milne.
Okay, well, with all that said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 9:43. And Barb, we'll let you do the motion this time. Give Brian a break, and you know, because it can be tiring.
Yeah.
Anyone opposed to us adjourning? That is carried, and we'll see everybody, or most people, this afternoon for planning and the special meeting for development charges. Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Have a good day.